Hey folks, so I've had a good question here from Michael, and he sent 30 DMs to people that have registered or expressed interest in his webinar, and he has now had 2 responses to those DMs, and he's asked what's the best next step. So I wanted to answer this here so we can all learn from this. So let me just jump onto my iPad and we'll run through it. So what we've got here, morning Adam, sent out DMs to 30 people. Awesome. 2 have already replied back saying they're interested in knowing more. All right, so interested in the program that he offers. So the question is, as the next step, I was going to reply back via LinkedIn, providing a 1-slide overview of the program along with a short message based on the script library. Hi, first name, here's what I'm thinking. How about we have a short 15-minute Zoom call to determine if this program is suited to your particular needs. Does that work for you? Here's my booking link, Michael. So that's the message there, the proposed message. What's the best next step? And also, Adam, how's this approach? Do I include indicative pricing in the 1-pager? Let's unpack this. There's a few things to consider here. Firstly, my thoughts are, if there's only 2 people, that's awesome that you've got a quick response, and that's fantastic. That's what we want. Given that there's only 2 though, I don't think we need to necessarily worry about making them book in a time and putting more barriers in place. What would be better, in my opinion, is just trying to get them straight on the phone, and I would be looking up their number. If you don't have it already, like if they've registered for a webinar, you may have the number. I know in your particular case you don't, but for other people in the group watching, you may have the number, so I would just call them because they've expressed interest in what you're doing. So I wouldn't make people book in given that there's only 2 people so far. If there was a high volume, that would be a different story. So I've broken this down as a bit of a framework to talk through with you. Let's have a look here. So if we're talking low volume of people, in this particular case, I would certainly just go straight to call them as soon as possible, really, because they've expressed interest, they're warm, they know who you are, they know what it's all about. I presume you've kind of touched on the program, or that you do have a program that can help them in the course of the actual webinar. Maybe they didn't turn up, that's okay. Often the best prospects are the people that don't turn up to the webinars because they're too busy doing other stuff, but they are still interested. That's why we consider it a webinar that doesn't matter. What we're doing it for is for people to raise their hand to express interest in what you're doing. So if it's low volume, I would call them ASAP. If it's high volume, in this situation where it's high volume and potentially not all high quality, in that situation I would probably send them to a booking link. That way we're putting more mini hurdles in place, little micro commitments. Therefore the people that do book are going to be more committed because they've actually gone through the process of booking in a time. But in this situation, 2 people, let's just get on the phone and do that. Now, the other consideration is, at the time of recording when this happens, it's Thanksgiving in the States. So given that it's American people we are talking about, American prospects we are talking about here, we need to bear that in mind too. So if we're looking at the time component, time of day, time of year, if it is business hours, let's call them ASAP. But it's not business hours if it's obviously middle of the night, after hours, holidays. If that's the case, we've got a couple of options. So if it is after hours or holidays, and we feel uncomfortable and it's inappropriate to be calling them at 2 in the morning or what have you, then what I would suggest here is either book a call or continue the communication via chat. Given that this conversation started on LinkedIn, people are probably least responsive on direct messages on LinkedIn than they are on email. Definitely they're typically much more responsive on Messenger or text. So if it starts on LinkedIn, I would be inclined, if it's holidays, which it is in this particular case, to say, look, it's Thanksgiving, middle of the night, whatever, I won't call you, but let's move this conversation over to Messenger or text, but Messenger or text. I would then send them the link that if they click that, it opens up a Messenger thread for you. The way to do that is m.me/whatever your Facebook link custom URL part is. For me, it's m.me/Adam C. Franklin. When they click that, that'll open up a Messenger on my phone. I would transition to that and continue the conversation by chat, and then asking them the same questions that you would ask in a triage call, but via chat. That way you can keep the momentum going and not wait till after Thanksgiving when everything might have changed, they might have lost interest, other stuff might have happened. That way you keep it moving. And then third part of this question is, should I send a program overview including indicative pricing? I guess there's two options, yes or no. If it's before the triage, I would be much more reluctant to share pricing just yet, especially again if we're talking low volume but reasonable quality, because they've expressed interest in your webinar and everything else. So my thought would be, no, let's wait until the actual triage call. Whether it's a call or whether it's by a chat, let's just see if they're qualified or not. So in this case, we would do no. Let's wait till the triage call. Find out if they're qualified. Certainly, whether it's on the phone call or via chat, if you've asked them, gone through the sort of 8 or 9 questions that you would normally ask, and it gets to the end, you could either just book in a strategy call. I prefer to mention the pricing and say, look, indicative pricing for this program would be $10,000 to $15,000 for the year. Is that something that your business is in a position to invest if I can show you exactly how it works and you decide it's the right fit for you? I would be doing that via message or on the phone. The only times that I would be sending a program overview before the triage call is if it's something that you've brought up on a webinar. If you've clearly talked through the value proposition and you've laid out what journey you're going to take them on and exactly what's involved, it's not the first time they're seeing it, by all means say, just to recap, here's a program overview, here's what to expect. If that all sort of makes sense, go ahead and book in. Either book in a time if we're talking high volume, or else send it to them in advance if you want to. But generally speaking, I wouldn't, especially in this particular case. Now the other final thing to keep in mind here is what is particularly good, say we conduct the triage call, so we do triage, doesn't matter if it's sell by chat or phone, but we've done the triage. What it is good then, before the strategy call, it is good, whoopsie, whoops, it's all going everywhere. It is good before the strategy call to give them something to do before they get there. So it could be, it's really good if it's a video, it could be training, or it could be watch the overview of the video walkthrough of what's in the program. It could be a PDF of the program including the pricing, or it could even be a worksheet. So it could be a worksheet, just asking to fill in a handful of questions. They don't necessarily need to submit it to you, but something for them to do in between times. And then the gap between triage and strategy, we're aiming for about 48 hours. There's a reason for that. If we want people to have enough space to think about it and digest it, but we want the buffer in there too, so that we are making sure that they're committed and we're putting these micro commitments along the way as well. So there might be an inclination to try and close it straight on the triage call. I would urge you probably not to. Just treat it as a 15-minute triage and then focus on giving them the buffer, giving them some homework, letting them watch over the overview. Could be worksheets, could be case studies. But this is all good stuff for in between times. It's also going to help really reinforce and position you, reinforce their decision. They're seeing case studies, they're understanding the program, they're getting it, and then they're much more likely to be in the headspace and committed and ready to invest and enroll when it comes to that 60-minute strategy call. If you're starting out, then you may not have this stuff in the middle. That's okay. Just go triage to strategy call, but as we're building this out, then putting these steps in between times is really useful. Alright folks, I hope that helps, and if there's anything that needs clarification, let me know. And Michael, good luck with the 2 opportunities that you have on your plate right now. Alright team, see you later.